recognized.
I thank the chair. Well, here we are in the first or second short-term extension of FAA, hopefully the last. The Senate has introduced a bill. I've had an opportunity to review the Senate bill, and if you put the bills side by side, you find very substantial agreement. In fact, there is very substantial agreement in the House over many of the critical provisions of the bill that relate to safety, the future regulation of drones, flight attendant rest, and numerous other provisions that were agreed upon during the markup. The one major disagreement between the House and the Senate bills is the same disagreement that exists here in the House, and that is over the privatization of the air traffic operations in this country. I'm not going to regurgitate the entire debate again here on the floor, but the point is, with both bills so similar, absent privatization, we could move well within the temporary extension. In fact, we could probably have a bill done. Well, we're not here very much. Congress is having, I think, a record few number of legislative days this year. But whenever we're going to be around again, I think there's a week in April and maybe a couple of days in May when we're going to be here, that we could get this done. That seems to me to be the more prudent course. The chairman and I do agree over what needs to be addressed at the FAA. First off, the biggest problem the FAA has is the United States Congress. These stupid shutdowns, sequestration, and other things which have interrupted critical work, both procurement and certainly interrupted the orderly operation of the air traffic control system. So how do we protect the FAA from Congress and idiots who want to shut down the government? That's a tough one. I propose mandatory spending. The FAA is virtually self-funding with the current tax structure without adopting a controversial new private fee structure that would be put through by the nonprofit corporation. The existing tax structure can pay for virtually 100% of the FAA as it is on an ongoing basis. And if we adopted some efficiencies with a couple of other reforms, it would be in very, very robust shape. And we would no longer have to worry about the idiocy of government shutdowns. Now, there's certainly other parts of the government I care about that shouldn't be shut down, but at least mandatory spending here, like Social Security checks and veterans benefits, would say, no, this is critical. It will continue even if, for some reason, the Congress is so dysfunctional as to shut down funding for the government. Secondly, procurement. Now, Congress has been trying to reform procurement at the FAA since 1996. Unfortunately, back then, Congress didn't mandate procurement reforms. They merely gave the FAA license to depart from federal procurement procedures if they so wished. And in the end, unfortunately, either through the initiative of the FAA or perhaps some of the people down at the Office of Management and Budget, the procurement reforms were not done. In fact, they ended up with a system pretty much the same as the others, perhaps even less functional than other federal agencies. And then finally, personnel. Again, Congress in 1996 gave, recognizing this problem 20 years ago, gave the FAA the opportunity, the discretion to adopt different personnel procedures, particularly as relates to the mid-level bureaucratic bulge in the agency, which does lead to some analysis paralysis and other problems that slow down needed measures or actions by the FAA. I offered a very simple amendment that addressed those three things. Shouldn't be controversial. It says let the FAA fund itself with the existing tax structure and make that mandatory spending so we never shut them down again. Let's have procurement reforms and personnel reforms that are mandatory. Unfortunately, that amendment failed, and instead this privatization proposal prevailed. But that now has brought us to this point where what is the path forward? Okay, we're now going to extend this agency temporarily until just before the longest summer break in history for Congress. Well, I guess back in the 40s and 50s they used to take the summers off, but at least since the invention and installation of air conditioning, the longest summer break in history. So we have to get it done before then. Otherwise, Congress won't be back until sometime in September for a couple of days, when it's not likely to do any major legislation. So the stability and the predictability that we need with the FAA, the reforms we need, not just the ones I mentioned, but the reforms in drones, the reforms to give flight attendants, the same mandatory rest hours, and many, many other provisions that are in agreement between the House and the Senate should not have to wait. So I would hope that we won't drag this out until just before Congress adjourns, and instead that we move forward with all dispatch after the Senate acts this week, if the Senate acts this week. You never can predict the Senate, and begin to correlate the few differences that I see between the bills. And then at some point, I think it'll be time to give up on the privatization proposal and move forward and put this bill into place. With that, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Oregon